Okay, so today is September the 19th. It's 7 o'clock. We're here in room 21 on the second floor at Town Hall. Finance Committee meeting. Just to look at your agenda, draft agenda was emailed out in advance. So we have tonight, when Elizabeth comes, we'll have the meeting minutes from July 11th to review. Reserve fund stands at $35,000. Public forum. Anybody here to talk about anything not on the agenda? Nope. New business. So what we want to cover tonight, really the purpose of the meeting, is that we have a special town meeting coming October 30th. And so we only have a little time to review the articles, which we are still in draft form. Mary Beth is here to kind of give us a sneak peek at a draft that is not for distribution. And then under old business, we're going to talk a little bit about the meeting recording status. We'll do the subcommittee reports. It's been a while since we heard from all the various subcommittees. We'll talk about the audit. Actually, while Mary Beth is here, we'll talk about that. And Alice Carlton is on the agenda because I had initially been appointed to be on the committee, but since I'm on the Finance Committee, it's not an ad hoc committee, so I'm not able to serve on that committee. So maybe we can get a little update from Mary Beth from the initial meeting. And under other business communications, we have maybe a couple town administrator updates, and shouldn't be a long meeting at all. So
good.
You always say that, right?
I know. Let's see if it comes true. So why don't we get on the new business item and talk a little bit about the special town meeting. Mary Beth can give us a little bit of a rundown of articles that are in draft form but are most likely going to be part of the warrant.
Right. So today I just put together articles that have come to my attention that I know about. And there will be probably a few more articles added to this, but I'll just run down the articles. The first one is the police department had an unpaid bill for the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department for detail. It's $896. So we'll have that on there. I don't know, I haven't heard of any other unpaid bills, but that's not unusual that we'd clean those up now. The next article I put on was the Reserve for Appropriation Cable Access Account to fund PEG access services. So this is money that comes in from all of our Comcast bills, and it goes to the town. It's their money. So they just want to be paid out whenever we have a meeting, rather than, it used to be in May, and then sometimes they weren't getting their check until July or August, and so now we're just going to pay it out. There's $142,793.50 that we'll be paying out to them. The third article that I have is to take care of some salary deficits that we have. You know about the assessor. We've talked about that one. That shortage is $9,896. So I have that on there. And the library needs some funding there. And the reason that they need funding is their assistant librarian was vacant for a while. And they filled that position, but they filled it at more money than what they had budgeted. So then, on top of that, they had two library part-time technicians. One of those part-time library technicians filled the vacancy of the person that went up to the assistant, and she was at like step 18. So she wasn't at a lower step, so that's going to run that line short a little. So David has been making it all work by not hiring his second library tech position of 15 hours. But he really has to, he can't take off a position. It's union, and there's so many positions. So there'll be a shortage there. I think it's about $11,000.
Didn't they bring that up though, Mary Beth, prior to that? That was their intention, wasn't it?
Well, their intention was when they went to fill the assistant at more money, I said, you have to stay within your budget.
Right.
The budget's been voted and you can't. He said, I can make it work, not a problem. He said, because I'll just increase the one tech from 15 hours to 20 or 18 and not fill the other. And then, of course, the union employees gotten,
Right.
It got to a level with the attorneys, and she's, it's a change of conditions working.
So he says he wanted to stay with the budget. Now he's going over budget, correct?
He is going over budget, but originally, don't forget, and I stripped back the budgets.
Yeah.
We had come
I think
into
that's what you're
you.
referring to. When they came in
Correct.
to present, they had
Right.
some ideas of
They did have
how they
some
wanted to
ideas.
expand some of the position.
Right, and I
Within
reduced
budget,
it.
right?
Well, that time wasn't within
No,
budget
it
last
wasn't
year.
within budget.
And I stripped it back to within budget,
Yeah.
and so I said, well, you have to hire an assistant only at what you have. That's all we have to work with.
Right.
But he said I can make it work because we have the omnibus budget and that he has a one salary line.
Yeah.
I said, if you can make it work with everybody and you're within your total salary lines, go ahead. But then he has found out that, yeah, he can't do that.
So
So
what's that dollar figure?
it's around 11,000, maybe 11,500. I want to run some, he threw a number, but I want the detail, of course, the calculation behind it, and I want it verified by the accountant's office before I
Thank you.
put it on the warrant. And then the third, Article 4, I should say, I just put down, this was Justin Evans. He asked me to put it as a placeholder. We may end up passing over it. The whole purpose is to capture any excess levy if we find that new growth came in above our projection. And of course, we won't know that for a while, and I don't know that we'll know it before the special town meeting. So if we don't know that, we'll just pass over this. But at least when we have the selectmen vote the articles and your recommendation, we'll have it on there in case we can do something there
So there's no figure on it right now, right? Right.
When do the assessors know?
in the fall when they set the tax rate.
This is going to be a town meeting on October 30th.
Right.
So how much later than October 30th?
Well, sometimes it's before that, right? It's right around
It
then.
hovers right around the end of October every year.
Yeah, it's like it's almost perfect timing for town meeting to know.
We're hoping it will.
Right.
Yeah.
It
If
may
you
work.
recall, last year it wasn't in time, and we ended up transferring money from stabilization, and then we had to pay it back at the annual, which Mary Beth just said that
Well, Mary
she.
Beth wasn't in charge last year. This year.
Right.
Well, I don't want to touch stabilization fund.
No.
I don't want to get in the habit
No, I'm
of
saying
borrowing and
excess-
backfilling. I don't
Excess
even want to
levy
go
needs
there.
to be captured.
Right, so that's another thing we're going to do. I've already talked to Kathy and Wendy about that. When they go to set the tax rate, just when they're about to come up for their hearing, at that point, if there's any excess levy, they have two options. They can increase their estimates. Increase their overlay or decrease their estimates
Yep.
for receipts.
Yep.
And you're never going to get it exact.
Yeah.
You're never going to get it exact, but at least it won't be leaving hundreds of thousands.
Other towns have it within 10,000. We have $250,000, more than $250,000.
But that money that you didn't capture does become the base step for the following
Oh, I know
year.
that, but-
So it's not completely,
No, I know we
Right,
don't lose it
but
for
that
next
year.
year's fiscal year, but we lost, did we have $275,000
No, but if
worth
you
of
spend
stuff?
that, you know, your tax rate's going up.
I
So
know.
there's, yeah, I'm just saying.
you tax into the levy.
Yeah,
You do that
you tax
to the
into the levy.
fullest
Yeah.
amount.
And so, and also too, with the valuation of town, rounding, so if you change the tax rate by a penny, that's 20 grand just in rounding figures.
Yeah.
Right, so
yeah,
that's
just
what I mean,
saying.
you'll never
Yeah.
get it
Yeah.
super close, but closer,
Close
absolutely.
to what we got.
Yep. And then the next article, Steve Egan reached out because Little Comfort Circle, he had met with the planning board and he had met all the requirements. So he's dropping off some plans with me. There'll be an article for town meeting and a process after town meeting. The clerk holds the information for 21 days in case anybody comes forward with questions and whatnot. But that would just be a road acceptance article.
I thought we didn't accept that last time?
No, not Little Comfort
Right.
Circle. We did a list of them, remember?
Right,
There were
right, right.
several. This was not one of them, no.
But this is not a donation of land that we may or may not want to
No, and
accept.
it's probably not a recommendation from the Finance Committee on that article.
There's no
either.
money, right. And then I put the middle school article. When I did this morning, I had not yet received what they hand delivered. Must have been after I left for the meeting this afternoon. So, I'll go over all this language, but that's the borrowing off for the $135,289,673. It has to be the full amount. People ask that question, and then it does say that we get 63.31 reimbursement of eligible costs. And let's see. So I have the article in the motion, and then the DPW, as you all know, was 3.2 million. It came in over budget. So we've trying to think of every way possible to come up with that difference. One way that Dennis came up with is he looked at all the articles that he has on the books for the water and sewer for projects that are completed or just about completed, and he culled together $1.4 million and $1.143 from all bits and pieces of some articles. So I contacted bond counsel. 2 of them were borrowing articles. The others were for other projects in town, but not for borrowing. So at first, bond counsel said that he would have to treat them a little bit differently, but in the end, he did send me draft language to pull together all those for another DPW project, which they'll use for the overage. That's $1.14 million. My plan initially was to take $2.2 million from ARPA for the DPW building. However, you cannot use ARPA funds for construction of a DPW building, yet you can use ARPA funds for a sewer force main project or a water main project.
Right.
And if we can't use the money for the sewer force main project we have ongoing, the DPW will have another project next year. The money does have to be designated by the end of 2024. And then for reimbursement, you have until, I think, the end of 26. But if not, of course, we can buy another ambulance or something for the fire department. He'd be more than happy to take something else. But we can't buy police cruises, and they replace them all the time. We can't buy DPW vehicles. We can spend it on technology. So I'll jump over to the ARPA in a minute, but basically with ARPA, there's restricted money and there's unrestricted. There's 2 sets of ARPA money. We have money from the federal government. They gave us like $796,000 2 years in a row. I would say we have about half of that, and I'll give you the amounts left. That's money cash in a bank account that we have charged anything to do with the vaccinations and COVID supplies and everything that they did over at the fire department went through that money. Masks, just everything. The other money is 2.7. I'll give you the exact number there. That's Plymouth County money. We haven't touched any of that money. There's restricted and unrestricted. The unrestricted is like 543,000, say. That we can use for anything. So we can use that for the DPW project, and we can use the cash in the bank towards the DPW project, because for the federal money you can use up to $10 million for anything you want, and we only got 1.5.
Was there a deadline on that, though, to spend it by?
Yeah, there is you have to probably think of the CARES. There was the
Okay, right,
CARES
yeah.
Act before ARPA,
spent
and
all that
that's
money
already
already.
ended.
Okay.
Yeah, that already ended. This is the new money
Right.
out of ARPA. So I figured that we could take $750,000 comfortably from ARPA for the DPW deficit, and then we have the 1.1 here. But that still leaves us short, which means that there may be an article going on here. The committee, DPW Building Committee, is looking to place an article on this warrant for, and I'm going to say 1.5. The number hasn't been finalized yet. My hope was, and it was a creative plan with Justin and myself and a few others, that said, Tom O'Brien in my call said, no, you can't use that 2.2 for the new DPW. However, do you have any water sewer projects? And I said, well, we do have a sewer force main project. Well, that borrowing was $12,898,000. Out of that, we have requisitioned out and received, say, 8.4. So we have another $4 million. So I said, could we take 2.2 and just pay bills for the sewer force main out of that, not borrow up to the 12.8, only borrow 10, and then we have not used $2 million there, and then put an article forward for $2 million. So I put that out to bond counsel before I reach out to the Mass Clean Water Trust and to DEP. Let's start with bond counsel. They're either going to say you're way too creative here, or you could really make that work somehow. So that's my hope. If we can't do that, the reason I say that I would only use $750,000, out of the unrestricted money is because there's some expenses that we've sort of earmarked already for opera funds, and they're not technology, and they're not
So you need
Fire.
to use the unrestricted opera
right.
for those.
So let me just finish, if I haven't jumped around too much on you. Those are the articles right now. That's all I have. Like I said, it's only a draft. I haven't even shown this to a selectman yet. I just put, everything in a folder and said, okay, let me see what I have so far. The other articles that I thought about, and if they can wait, I'm going to let them wait, is the DPW, the fire department, and the police department have received grants. And that's wonderful. It's a lot of money. The IT, it was $182,000. However, there's always a town's portion that we have to come up with in order to get that money. So for the IT, it's like $15,000. So I thought, well, we maybe could, if we have to put these on, the town's portion of these grants on this warrant, then we'll have to do that for timing if we have to come up with it within a certain amount of time. If it can wait, then I'd let it wait. But then you're probably saying, well, how are we funding any of these articles, right? So free cash may or may not be certified. It's been certified as early as Columbus Day. Well, that's October 9th. Our meeting is on the 30th. But it's also been certified early November. So again, we're playing like, will we have money or not? So the high school, the district, I should say, had several articles for the town of Hanson and the town of Whitman that they have, done the installations on the projects paid for, but they hadn't billed Whitman and Hanson. So they've cleaned up a lot of those articles. They've sent us invoices. I've paid them every single invoice that's come in. We've put it right through to get them the money. And on all the Whitman-only articles, once they have received their payment, they have certified to us that they're done with the balances and that can wash back to our general fund. So while I'm still waiting for John to certify a couple of others, they're district articles, and he said, well, you've paid your share, Hanson hasn't paid theirs, I can't close out and certify Whitman's share. So I'm calling Hanson tomorrow to help John and to help us to see if I could get that money closed. That money totals about $140,000. So that's what I planned on using for some of these articles. Basically a transfer from one article to another. Because if we close them out, it closes out and will come back to us with our free cash certification. If I don't close them out to free cash, we have the letter from the district saying that they're done. We can just transfer, and I've already checked on that, from one article that we used originally to appropriate to for the playground or whatever, and now we can transfer it to some of these. So that sort of was the funding source I had in mind in case free cash was not yet certified. I don't want to touch stabilization.
So the Whitman-only articles, John can release those. It's the Whitman-Hanson 60-40 shared articles that he can't.
Right. And he did release the ones that Hanson had paid, because they paid, he said he just got a round of money from them, like from June, he got that a few weeks ago. But there's still the most recent ones that he sent me, August 30th and 31st, we paid out September 5th, But he said he hasn't gotten that side. I said, can you close out any more for us? He said, I'm trying. I said, okay. So that was what I was thinking for funding source. And I'll just jump to opera. Is that okay?
Sure.
Or do you have any questions on the article?
So just one clarification too, is like, I forwarded everybody this funding analysis that was part of the last Board of Selectmen meeting. So page 2 kind of showed what the DPW found money to assist that shortfall of $1,049,000. And that's the similar way that Mary Beth is proposing to fund these articles in the special town meeting. So if you look, when you can open this up again and take a look at
I have
that.
some paper copies.
Oh, okay.
There's 5 of them, yeah.
Of that?
Yeah, they're like packets. You know what, I emailed them, but I just opened my email, and it looked like it never sent.
Oh, okay.
Just sent them, you just got it. Also got a note saying it's gonna be a little late.
So that packet is in there? This packet here is in there? Is that what you're referring to?
I believe it is, yeah.
Okay.
That one page
that first page.
Yeah.
So Social Regional Vocation School District was another one. That one I did not print out. Do you have that in there after the minutes?
So there's the page there, so it's 4 pages deep in the packet that
Right.
she just passed out. Yeah, thank you. So that's all I'm saying is just it's similar, the funding source for the warrants on the special town meeting in the same way that the DPW proposed using the articles that had money left in them. Okay. John, you had a question?
Well, what I'm wondering is, away from all the numbers, do we now know for certain what the bottom line is going to be for the DPW building? Or are they apt to dig something else up
Yeah.
and suddenly realize that there's more of a problem than the
Well, the
problem
problem-
they thought they were going to try
Yeah.
to avoid?
I guess the issue really is the soils. I mean, we knew there was issues with the soils, the timing of the testing. I mean, there's a lot of things, that went into how we got into the position we're in. But basically, it's more of the market as well. I mean, the bid market right now the prices are astronomical. Contractors are really reeling from COVID. And, all the supply chain issues, they paid dearly for that. And I think it's a little bit of backlash there. So where we're seeing bids come in for the DPW, we're seeing bids come in from the middle schools that are not what even our OPM or our architect envisioned. But couple that with the soil issue there at the DPW, and that's where we have, obviously not enough funding. So will this $2.2 million, if we look for a funding article on the warrant, close the gap? There is universal concurrence in that committee that will be enough to fund the project. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of conditions. The soil, chief among them, in that particular site, that has dramatically raised the cost of that project, so. Any other questions on the draft warrant to date?
Okay.
Yes.
Did an email copy of that go out, or is that just a printed copy?
It's a
Oh.
draft form right now. It's not even available to us.
Selectmen,
It's another
I haven't
audible.
seen it. I just did this today.
It's not even done.
Okay.
So, good question. At the time where this is going to be presented to the selectmen, which is the 26th,
Well, the 26th is the date to close, so I was thinking we would close it on the 26th and then make sure I had everything right up until the end of the day on the 26th, and vote it on the 3rd. I just don't want to get too tight with my timeline. So I did say to Carl today, I suppose we could take it through the 26th. I'll know what I have in my email walking upstairs, and then just close it then and have a vote on the 26th, which would give more time then to have you guys give your recommendations, get it to the printer, and get it posted. There's 2 different warrants that need to be posted. One is for the school, I should say. This is the regular warrant that needs to be posted, and then there's a posting for the special town election. One for the meeting, one for the election, 2 different deadlines. So.
but the difficult thing for our committee is that we only have 1 meeting to approve these warrant articles. So that's why we're getting an advanced briefing on its content, but we don't really have a copy to review, so that makes it a little difficult. And our next posted meeting is going to be October 10th, which will be the deadline for us to finalize the recommendation. So my hope is that you could email a copy on the 26th. The committee can review prior to our meeting on the 10th and have all the questions. You don't know the October meeting schedule for selectmen yet?
Well, so October 3rd is a hearing. Right now, it is a selectmen's meeting. The main reason, or was going to be the sole reason, was to have the Comcast hearing for the renewal of the Comcast license, which happens every 10 years, WHCA and that whole process. However, I did say to Carl, I suppose that we could put voting the articles just at the beginning of that that wouldn't take too long, and then have the hearing. But it's not going to be a regular meeting, so Carl said the next one after that, it hasn't been set yet, but tentatively we're looking at the 17th.
Okay.
And definitely can't wait till then to have your, I won't make my deadline of the 16th, so.
Mary
Right.
Beth,
Yeah.
so the hearing's going to be scheduled for 7 PM. That's already out there. Is there a way you could have the selectmen come in 6 o'clock?
Oh, they wouldn't even need that much time.
Would that, oh, okay.
You know, if so, yes, what,
Yeah.
we haven't posted,
Right.
you know, for that, so if we get close, and it doesn't happen on the 26th, we'll just have it for 6:30, and we'll take care of that. It won't interfere with,
Yep, no, the 7 is already set and out in the universe, so,
Right.
but just.
right, but we could add on to that by
Yeah,
just
or-
starting earlier.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so going back to the warrant, Mary Beth has indicated that the chairman of the Board of Selectmen is not really all that keen on putting a $2 million warrant article for the DPW on the warrant. He's only one member, but he's indicated that he wants the committee, the building committee, to go back and find some other alternatives for financing, right? Is that really the mandate?
Well, I mean, I'm not even thrilled about going to the taxpayers for
Well,
more money, right? I
nobody is.
mean, we really don't want to do that. That's our absolute last resort after we've approved a project. However, this has to get done. I mean, it's 3 times that it's come, and its soil is one of the reasons, along with the market conditions, as you said. So right now, yes, it will have to be voted by the board, but Carl did say, you know, see what you can do, go back to try everything you can to
Right.
come up with money. So that's what we're doing.
Okay,
That'll be
so
our last.
just so the board knows that this is really the best opportunity in advance of getting a final draft of the warrant to ask any questions that you might have beforehand. But like I said, we are kind of under the gun, so to speak, to make all recommendations by the 10th so that the warrant can be printed. John?
The DPW thing, I could talk all night about watching the video of the selectmen's meeting and the admission that we tried to avoid looking at the dirt. Granted, we didn't have the money for it, but then we have a selectman saying, I could have told you it was all contaminated. I can see why you would not want to go to the townspeople and say, the project's $2 million short, so we need you to vote $2 million more, and then the middle school, which is why I raised my hand. What is the tentative wording for the middle school article?
Oh,
Mary Beth just got it handed to her today.
No, she's writing it.
well, I already took the draft.
Yeah.
You know, this is not what was delivered to me today. Do you want me to read you the whole? Or do you want to
Well,
read
we're
it?
basically, what we're going to recommend here to the voters is whether they spend, what is it, 135 million?
Correct.
And the breakdown of what's coming from the state and what will be raised, and maybe in the background, how it's going to be raised.
Yeah,
In the explanation.
right.
All right, so
So I know that these are difficult decisions. These are major capital projects, right? But we don't have a lot of alternatives, right?
no, I understand that. It's just that for something as significant as this, it just seems like what we're going to have will lock down the money amounts, and we will take it on faith that people are telling us the building needs to be replaced, as opposed to, and I understand it's not even being repaired, but brought up to code as an alternative if the town doesn't vote for the $135 million. But how many people have been through the middle school recently?
Well, last
There are
year.
tours available. It's awful. They'll be posted, pretty awful. It's not,
Go ahead.
So, I think we need to get to the root of the problem. Why are we here? We're here because we delayed capital. We delayed capital from the DPW, and it got more expensive. And we're here because we delayed capital fixing for the schools and doing that. We were accepted right away because we were so delayed. And this, although expensive, is actually the cheapest point in which we could do anything. Cheapest point. If we delay anything or say we don't do anything, I would recommend that when we view all of this, we view them both DPW and schools collectively as one whole unit, not one or the other, because this is the cheapest point in which we can do this. Now, if I were to say I had to, which I don't want to, and I think it would be wrong, pick one before the other, I would always go with the one that holds the most amount of citizens and the one that has the opportunity to increase our EQV, our equalized value. And schools have the opportunity. Schools are an economic engine for towns that have primarily homes in them. And the reason for that is Sean Kane brings up quite often the 12%. Well, that 12% moves with your EQV. So you're able to pull in more revenue to handle that. Almost, I think we talked about it quickly in passing once. I said, we might need more hands to handle this money. We might need more residents. We might need more people moving in to handle some of the revenue that we've delayed so badly. So, not that I'm saying build, 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 but the MBTA is saying build, build, build. I mean, the state's telling us to build through the MBTA Act. We'll lose opportunities for lots of grants. And we clearly need to have more hands to handle, more people to help us handle some of this capital debt. These are buildings we need. What's the alternative? We don't have an alternative, so this is the cheapest point for either one of these buildings.
Okay, good point. So, John, would you like Mary Beth to read the article the way it's worded now? Would that help?
No, that's all right.
Well, we are going to get a draft copy next week. Once the Board of Selectmen has an opportunity to review it as well, so. But like I said, these are our important recommendations that we're certainly not going to take lightly, So I would suggest that if we have questions, even after you get a copy of the draft warrant, that there's some, language that you like to have explained, then we'll get an email.
What I'd make a recommendation is, what do you think it's going to cost the average taxpayer if these projects do go through? That's what I get a lot of people asking me about. I go, that's a problem right now. If you can tell us an idea of what it's going to cost for a 20-year period, every month it's going to cost an average, home.
Well, and that's a big topic
Right.
of discussion right now as well.
Yeah.
However, the way I calculate it, you can borrow either on a level debt basis or a level principal basis. Our high school right now is on a level principal. The DPW is going on a level principal, and I would want the middle school to go on a level principal. And the reason I say that is because you're borrowing the same amount, which is 90 million, so it's 135, 289 or whatever, and then it's 63.31% of eligible costs, which nets down to about 34% overall. And we get 90 million we're borrowing for. It's like 89,684. So we use 90 million at 5.5%. You have to remember too, this is not the town's borrowing, it's the district's borrowing. So we have to go on their bond rating. Their bond rating is not as high as the town's bond rating. So John Stanbrook said that he would borrow at it would probably cost them 5.5%. I go with what John says. He knows his bond rating and his debt. So we ran the schedules for 30 years at 5.5% level debt and level principal. The first year on a level principal, you have a payment, and each year, because of interest, that payment goes down. So the way I ran it, the first year, we used the average home in town based on the current data that we have. And of course, when we actually go to borrow, we'll be using different data because a new tax rate will have been set, and we'll be using a new January 1st valuation. However, right now, that puts an average home, which is 400 420,300 or
Yeah,
500? 300, 420,300. It puts the first year debt payment at 1494.10 for,
On average per
that's the
household.
first, only the first year.
Right.
Second year, it goes down to 1462 or whatever, and it gradually goes down over. The average of those 30 years comes out to about 1,017, I think, right around there.
Yep.
That's
So
the
for
average.
30 years?
That's for 30 years. So the level debt,
Yeah.
if you went that way, same 30 years, same 5.5%, but the debt doesn't start out higher and decrease. It's the same every year.
Right.
The average there, 1,077 or 1,070?
1163.
1163. But the difference is, so that number looks better than the
That's
494.
level payments.
That's level debt.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Level
Now,
debt.
when this new tax rate goes in, is this the projected numbers now and not when the new tax rate goes into effect?
Right, so this is just based on, right now, it
Right.
would take our tax rate and
Okay.
it would increase it by, 280, whatever it is, a dollar amount. But bottom line, if a homeowner took their tax bill for fiscal '23 for the whole year and multiplied their tax bill by 26%,
Yeah.
that's going to tell them what their taxes would be the first year. The difference between, just so you know, level debt,
Yeah.
which has a lower payment to start, and level principal, is that level principal saves the town $19 million in interest over the 30 years. So while it's $14.94 the first year, the last year is $5.98 or $5.94, the level debt is that $11.60 whatever every year. So there's two different ways of looking at it, but 19 million more in interest is something I'm concerned with, but Kathleen is not.
It's not I'm not concerned.
No, I don't mean not concerned, but I mean, you're looking at it from a different way.
2054, if you go with level principal, the cost of the middle school would be $594.
Yep.
I'm not going to be here in 2054. I
Not
hope
on
all
this
of you
committee?
people- and the cost to me in 2025 is $1,494. But if you do the level payment, I'll be paying $1,164 for however long I live in
Yep.
Whitman. And so will the young family that moves in that's just barely able to buy their first house. So is the middle-aged family that's got kids in college. So, and I'm not arguing with you, Mary Beth, I'm so happy you're in this position.
I'm not arguing
But
either.
if you look at $11.64 in 2025 dollars versus $11.64 in 2054 dollars, and who are the taxpayers that we're saving this money for? It's a fluid population. I don't think I'll be here in 2054.
I won't
And
be.
there will be people who haven't been born who will be here in 2054, and hopefully 1163 will be less
A lot
of
easier
a
to
burden
pay.
on
Yeah.
them than it is on the current taxpayers. So I think
get it.
the argument, the discussion has to be held.
Absolutely. And if I had just my taxpayer hat on, I would go with level debt. But looking at it from a total cost to the town, I can't say $19 million more makes sense for the whole town. I just, looking at it from the total picture. What it also does is by going with level debt, your debt isn't decreasing. And when your debt decreases, it opens up the capacity for other jobs and buildings and projects. Level debt won't do that. So,
I was just going to say, we've got to consider how much capital that we are having. I agree with Kathy on the impact to the taxpayer. She's right. That's going to be a hit, and it's going to give the relief later on. But that's supposing that there won't be any other building opportunities. And when we look at that same capital issue, how much delayed capital we have across
look
the
at the fire station.
I was just going to say the
town
same
hall,
thing.
how old this is.
This is we're looking at some massive. So that's, if we're thinking best practices preparing long term for the town, when do you take the hit is the question. Right.
But
You're taking a double hit now, right?
Yeah, you'd be taking a double
You're
hit
taking
now.
a DPW. This is just.
Oh, triple hit. It's not even a double hit. Remember, we've got
But
that.
you know what I'm saying is
Social
right now,
track,
yeah.
they're going to be asking the same question there. That will be a challenge. Is, okay, I'm going to $1,500 for this one project, how much for the second project?
Right.
I've now
So-
doubled my tax
So
burden,
there's,
Absolutely.
right?
there's a,
The realtors won't be happy either, because you move to Brockton or Bridgewater at half the taxes to come in here.
We want, this school, we need it. We
I'm not
need the
arguing
school.
that point.
No, I'm not either.
Yeah, it's just-
But what I'm saying is, we need the school. However, they want what's right for the children, but we have to consider what the parents and grandparents can afford too. So it's a discussion to be had with both sides.
there's a middle ground here that you guys aren't talking about. Whereas one building is borrowed in one way and one borrowed in the other. And that we do have that, a little bit of rollover or growth, but not as large as you would if you had done both the DBW and the schools in the same
Well,
way.
can you call the bond after 10 years and
Revisit.
this is for people who do this for a living. I don't do finance for a living. But go with, just a suggestion, the level payment, and then 10 years in, when the financial situation changes, call the bond and refinance it at level debt.
Yeah, but you may be refinancing at God knows what rate
I
then.
hear you.
Well,
but it may
right,
go down-
higher.
It may go down.
10 or
Control
12%.
that.
May.
We're looking at the
But it's
inflation
been
now, we're
30
24%
years.
So we
inflation.
could control this, and if anybody paid attention to what I was
Oh, no,
screaming,
it's not that.
I think Kathy
Oh, it
just
is.
pointed
I know.
over. I was worried about the bond, the bond rate, how the high school was gonna borrow all along. I was at every meeting saying the same thing. I was worried about their ratings, and I had brought it up.
Paying out E&D.
E&D, I was worried about their E&D. There was also, they also hadn't played into Plymouth County enough in some sort of consistent way. Yeah, they weren't paying it the same consistency as we were, so I had gone to a few meetings and asked those questions and asked them to consider watching and being careful, because Whitman is about to borrow. And I can't say what they did or what they didn't do, because I don't know. Maybe they were planning to do worse. They had to do, but I think I brought it up when we were planning a budget for them every year.
Absolutely did.
Thank you,
I
Kelly.
was there.
But in the end, this is something we have to consider, their bond rating when we go for it. Of course, we can't control when we give them money that they're going to put it towards that, but clearly we can influence, certain things. And, being at meetings and saying we have an expectation that you would have a better bond rating, and then reconsider the debt at that point could help.
John?
Are you going to wait until the selectmen decide how this project, the middle school, will be funded to finalize the article? Does the article say we're heading in this particular direction to
No.
finance?
No, it mentions nothing about that. So this article simply says to see if the town will vote to approve $135 million authorized by the Whitman-Hanson District, for a new school, and the reimbursement is about 63.31%. It doesn't talk. This will raise the questions when it goes to discussion. The first thing people are going to say is, what's the impact to the average house? What is the average house? So that's not in the article at all,
Okay,
but it will come up.
but it will come up.
Do you think that's going to affect your way you want to vote? Yes or no?
Well, I just want to know,
More houses,
granted, I
different average.
deferred on having the article read to me. But the question becomes, you've raised the question, do we go this way or do we go that way?
Right.
We have, again, money that's going to be asked for from the taxpayers for the DPW. Maybe it's far enough down the road, but the South Shore of Oak Tech is going to be looking for money.
It's not far down the road.
1 year.
3 years away.
They said 2 years, but now they've
I'm
shortened
looking
it to 1.
No,
Sure.
close to two. Just based on where they are in the MSBA.
So that has the potential to add $30 million.
40 million, I heard today.
No, John was way off on those numbers.
Oh, was
because They're
he?
going to be 2 more towns. We're not going to be 24% of the cost, so.
We're 24 right now, 24%.
Yes, but that's with
enrollment.
Pembroke and Marshfield not yet in, and Pembroke wants in. So it's going to be spread over 10 towns, and we're not going to be 24% of the cost. So his numbers were way off, which is why I said we're not going to engage with John. He was way off.
Yeah.
But I did get an email from South Shore of Oak Tech that we had 68 students, or 64, 14 more than last year, so it's going to affect our next appropriation for
That'd
that.
be 150.
Well, we had 14 more this year than last
Okay,
year.
okay.
All right, so we don't want to drift too far off our topic here either.
Nope.
So, that, like I said, all good questions. They're all gonna come up at town meeting,
Well,
right?
so I guess what we'll say at town meeting, because with the DPW building, the project went through, and then we had the meeting on how to borrow, because we haven't even really borrowed that money yet. We've had a meeting, an initial, but that was a year ago. So this will go through, and I guess we've put both figures out. If we did level debt, we're looking at approximately this. If we look at level, and they may say, hey, you know, that is a $400 difference, so we need to know which way you're going now, right?
I would think a lot of people are gonna want to know that.
So the question
Yes,
I
that's
put
right.
forth to, and I trust the pros, right? So I called our financial advisor and I said, can you tell me why anybody would go for level debt over level principal? Would they, should we consider it on a building project? And he said, no, that $19 million, you'd always go with level principal. He said, if you were paying with rates, I've done water projects where they would do a level debt, but he said not on new construction. I would never recommend it. But again, he doesn't have 3 projects going all at once,
That's the exact argument.
right?
The VOTEC got
Yep.
$10 million last year, 2021 rather, and they did it with level debt. This is from East South Shore VOTEC.
Wait a minute, that's $1,500, is that both projects, that's just one project?
That is just the Whitman Middle.
Right. Then I would incorporate that to tell the taxpayer what's gonna cost for the DPW
And for an average home, I think that was about $255, $270
per household.
Yeah,
a year.
right,
Say 300,
Right.
yeah.
so that's
So
what,
I
And
think
that's
we
not
should
the
talk a
vote
little
check.
bit about
Yeah.
our debt schedule and, you know, what we have had for debt in the past 5 years and what, comparatively speaking, where are we with other towns, right? I
But
mean,
we're very low with our debt.
Well, that's what I
Very
mean.
low, because most of our debt is water sewer, which is through the enterprise. We have very, very little, Ken's not here, but just from my memory, very little general debt. We have the police station, and the high school is rolling off. The 2027 is the last year of the high school
I
debt.
think that's kind of the perspective that we need to get out there, you know.
yeah, that's right. The reason I'm questioning that is because if the people don't know about it, which they don't know about it.
No.
You look at social media, everybody's up in arms right now, $2,000, $3,000 on increase in their taxes, which is not the case.
Well, that's if you have a $420,000 home. If you have a
Right.
600 or an
Right.
800,
You can't, they don't want to hear that. They won't see that either.
Right.
So that's why if you get out ahead of it, let the people know that there's a town meeting coming up, and if you're concerned, come out and vote.
I tell people,
Yeah,
you need
it's
to
not
vote.
advertised,
If
though.
you're
It's
for
obviously-
it or
yeah.
you're against it.
Yeah.
You need to vote or don't complain.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a lot of people misinformed. You know what? There's
Right.
2 projects going on, and that's what I see happening. People aren't well aware of it.
And they put a little information out, and people, it's wrong, and people
Yeah.
run with
Right.
it. And
Right.
Rosemary,
Thank you. If everybody remembers the Capitol, Collins Capitol meeting, one of the examples they used was Belmont, Massachusetts. And Belmont has a wonderful rolling debt, right? And it's kind of what you're saying by having it front-loaded and you'll have room to move. We have low and no carrying, no debt. It might be a good idea for personal finance, but not for a town's finance.
You're not comparing
Because-
Belmont with Whitman,
We're
are
not,
you?
it's not Belmont, we're talking about best financial practices. And the Collins uses it because Belmont does have some of the best financial practices out there. It really does. And it's probably because all the big bankers live there, right? And, but one of the things that was key there is they have room to move. She's got no room to move with nothing rolling off, very little rolling off. We're struggling, and then the taxes are jumping up. At one point, it's going to happen. We had so much delayed capital that it was going to come here no matter what. So I want to ask somebody, what's going to happen if we don't build it? What do you have planned for children? You think we just don't have children in town? Is that the plan? And, a camp, a tent? And what's going to happen if we don't do social VOTAC? Do they just keep our kids in the school bus? I mean, this is a realization of what do we have to do, and just like parents, when you're parents, sometimes you just have to do something, and we might have to begin to think we need to keep up with capital, and we need to be more responsible about capital. And I think that conversation has to happen. And one of the things I want to hear, actually, and I haven't heard, is, okay, when this rolls off, our plan is the police station or the senior center. There's other things. There's another piece of capital that we haven't talked about either. These are places that we need to service the people that live here, particularly a growing demographic. So I'd like to see that real plan out in the open so people understand and have a vision of where their money is going, what we have to fix, what we haven't fixed, and what we need to do.
Right. Well, you're talking more strategic plan. We're
Yeah,
still
I
kind
am,
of.
but even a
I
strategic plan
understand.
here.
But we
we're
have
nitpicking.
2 meetings to get the recommendations for this warrant. That's all.
They both need to happen.
I think the challenge I think you're gonna see for most people is they will compare this to like buying a car.
Yeah.
Do I do a 5-year payment plan or a 6-year? Well, I need to get under 200 or whatever it is now, $400 a month, so I'm gonna do a 7-year payment. That's what people are gonna be looking at here.
They know they're
Then the
paying more.
strategy comes into play, where you can say, yes, but once we get to that point, now we can go to the rolling stuff. But that's going to be their biggest concern. I'm very concerned about whether both of these will pass. I mean, there was a lot of stuff, like you said, about the school committee meeting, where it was, that I want this, and it's all or nothing, and they may get nothing out of it, as opposed to coming back with something that might have been a little more palatable, or at least a plan A and a plan B and a plan C based upon funding. And that's a challenge.
Unfortunately, if it doesn't pass, that's what will happen. They'll have,
Yeah.
even if it passes town meeting and fails at the ballot, that's a fail. So they'll have to go back to the drawing board and maybe do a 6 through 8. But
That's 3 to 5 years away from now, where the costs go up. So
Yeah.
It's just as expensive.
It's the
Right
same
there.
scenario as a
And
DPW.
it's
You-
2 times.
If you don't learn from your mistakes, 15 years ago we
This
had a
is the
building.
cheapest point in which we can do it. I said that. This is
How many
it.
people were
The
here, though,
realization
Rick?
of that.
How much
That
did it cost
remember
15 years
that, you
ago?
know, it's.
Yeah.
Right,
What was the
no,
cost 15 years
And it was
ago?
a better building
It was-
15 years ago.
It was a little less than what it is now. Yeah, I think it was 14 million.
14.
So it was quite a bit less.
And you probably could have got away with dirty soil.
Back then.
Maybe if we did it 30 years ago.
How is
Just a little Mr.
I know that not meeting, we're having some issues because we haven't met that MBTA Community Act, and there is grants out there. Is that affecting our ability to access those clean community
No,
grants?
we're working on that.
Yeah, we have,
We're within deadlines. We're not.
Okay, you're good with
Missed
the
anything.
deadlines.
We have the
Kathy's
Barrett-
on it.
Yeah, we have the Barrett Planning Group working with us.
The
Yeah.
Barrett
Exactly on
Planning,
that.
that's the one that I have the facts from, okay.
Nope, Kathy's on that.
All right, so let's keep to talking about this warrant article then. Any other articles on there that anybody has questions on? John?
Well, we've got a couple of articles, or at least one article coming up. Do we need more as far as the assessor's salary increase? And we had talked about it in the spring. Or the library situation. We might as well,
Get the backup?
if
Is that what you
there
want?
is backup that we need to see,
Sure.
we need to kind of decide tonight to ask for it.
Good idea. Can we get the backup for the salary?
Sure. So, I have, let's see what I have.
You can email it too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have backup for every article. I don't have the calculation on the library yet. But for the unpaid bill, I have a copy of the invoice for the $896. For the unpaid bill, for the $142,793, I have the emails going back and forth showing what's in the account. So I have that number. The salary, the shortfall for the fiscal budget is 9896. I've copied Karen. And I have another email saying that they verified that is the shortage for the year. I would think that's all you need
Yeah.
on that. And then Justin's article, and then I have the wording on the schools. So yes, and believe me, every article that I get this year will have backup. We're not going to chase backup at the 11th hour.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
I had to come into you guys with all my backup
I know.
for years.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you
did.
did.
You were wonderful about it.
So I have backup right here so far of everything.
So yeah, if you
That's
can
the
email
wording for
that.
the school, the
Yeah.
the draft. And there's Little Comfort Estates, there's the letter that the selectmen will have. And there's the vote for all the money going from bond council into the DPW articles. And then I have backup showing all his articles, his letter to the accountant, and her verification that she has verified all the amounts.
Right.
So I'm
And this-
on it.
And this is a pretty good backup too, this document that was put together for the presentation to the Board of Selectmen. I mean, there's a lot of information in there
Yes.
too for you to consider on how you want to vote on that. So the funding analysis for the DPW project. John,
Can I ask why we're doing
Hold on.
electronic? Sorry, Jeff.
John,
Where were you 3 years ago? Or is it 4 years ago?
Why? What did I do?
Why couldn't they have taken you for the position
I
a
didn't
long
want
time
it.
ago?
I didn't want it.
Rosemary, did you have something?
Yeah, it's about the electronic devices now. Why have they decided to use these electronic devices now for voting? It seems to buy electronic device.
No, that's
Oh,
these.
no.
That's these devices.
That's the recordings.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The article that Frank proposed that was to cost nothing is going to cost $1,500 or about.
About 1,500. That's correct.
And then who takes care of
All the
reports,
storage.
storing it?
You want to talk a little bit about the process? Well, it is an agenda item. Why don't we exhaust
I think
the
it'd be a
warrant
lot
first?
cheaper.
Absolutely.
It would be a lot cheaper to just have coffee and donuts in a bigger room and say, come on down, or serve mocktails and say, come to the actual meeting and have,
You'll learn more.
participate.
Yes.
Yeah, and ask questions.
Then you don't get our comments
The
out of
way things are
context.
going, I don't think it should be a mocktail.
We're calling that because we don't want any
All
liability.
right, let's get back on track here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Okay, where
All
are we
right.
going next?
So we're going to go, any more questions on the town meeting warrant articles? ARPA, you talked a little bit about ARPA.
I talked a little bit about opera, and I'll make it real short here. But basically, we have $2,734,028.90 for Plymouth County opera. That breaks down to $2,150,147.79 that's considered restricted. That has to go in front of town meeting and can only be spent on like 4 different categories of money. Very limited on what we can do with that money.
What are the 4 different categories?
I don't think I have that folder with me, but it's sort of like healthcare, water, sewer, infrastructure. We can spend it on, ambulance, fire, things like that. Technology.
Right, don't we want to spend it on the water and sewer project?
Right, we can't spend it on the DPW though.
building
I'm
doesn't count.
trying to find
Yeah.
a creative way to spend it on the sewer force main
You just have
project.
to find out an answer to that, right?
Right, and wait
I
for
would find
bond
out the whole of
council.
the water and sewer.
That's what I want to do, because it would
Absolutely.
benefit the most people.
Absolutely,
That was something you mentioned a few
absolutely.
years
I
ago.
did.
You did.
I did.
And it was disappointing that we didn't follow through on your advice. I think I
Well, we
echoed it.
hadn't gotten the ARPA money, that's when it was under CARES Act.
It was the CARES
Yeah.
Act that didn't
Yeah.
reduce the overall tax burden.
Right.
And the thing with the CARES Act, you had to spend the money and get reimbursed.
Well, it's good.
And some of this we do as well.
Yeah.
And so out of the 2.7 from Plymouth County, that 2,150,147.79 is restricted, but 583,881.11 is unrestricted, so we can spend that on anything. And then in the bank, the cash on hand is $812,997.73. And just some of the items that I had earmarked for this money was $750,000. If we can't use 2.2 in my creative way, then I would take all of the unrestricted from Plymouth County, 583, 881.11, and 166, 118.89 out of the bank cash to give them $750,000. Then we have the ambulance, which we already had told the fire chief we took off the warrant last year, and we said that we would pay for that out of ARPA. That's $537,663. And one thing that I really want to consider and pay off is the feasibility study for the Whitman Middle School. So that was $850,000 article. They borrowed $500,000. The ban on that for last year, the interest came in at like 10 something for interest. Well, we didn't have the money last year to pay off the ban, so we rolled it. By rolling it now, the interest this year is going to be $23,000. I want to take $23,500 of the unrestricted ARPA. That's why I don't want to put more towards the DPW out of the unrestricted, and pay that ban off. Just pay it off rather than, eventually we have to pay it. We can only roll it so long.
So you're plugging up all the leaks, the money leaks, so that we can...
Yeah, I want to just clean that. And then we do have DocuSign, which is something we're putting in for technology. A lot of you may use something like that when you refinance or whatever. It goes around so that you can just electronically sign documents. Bad weather, someone's ill, COVID, you can't come in the office. That was $5,000. The recorders, I think he got at least 20 of the recorders for a total of $1,500.
Recorders like this?
They're just little portable
Are
ones.
all town meetings, or all meetings can be publicized?
All boards and committees are required to record their meetings, and when we hand out the recorders, we're sending an email out to the chair, the
Yeah.
chairman of all the boards. They'll pick up the recorder with the instructions
Right.
on how to upload that. So that would just be sent to your email, and then you'd upload it to WHCA, and then people could access the meetings, the recordings.
So we're not being videotaped?
It's not being videoed.
Audio.
Oh, I
audio.
was
Just
kind
audio.
of looking forward to the video.
That's an expense we can't afford.
Yeah,
Were you looking for a clothing allowance?
absolutely, yeah, Congress,
Will we be grabbing
Go
the
ahead,
gavel
hold
now?
on. Elizabeth?
Am I able to upload those now to WHCA, or are we waiting on a process?
Actually, you probably could with the steps on how to do it. So Josh just sent me last night. I told him I wanted him to put together just a one-pager on how people can do it, and some people are not going to be, able to do it as easily as others. So we're going to try it that way. He wants everybody to do it directly themselves. And yes, you probably could.
Okay.
So he sent me a one-page document. I made a few edits and sent it back to him last night. I'm waiting to get the recorders. I can have every chairman sign out the recorder with the sheet on how to do it, and we'll see how it all goes.
So could we use the recorder we have now, or are we going
Yes.
to use a new one?
It's up to you. No, as long as everybody
So as
has
soon as I
one.
get the one pager, I'll just send it to you, and you can send out our meetings once they get approved right away.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's just as easy as like
it on the
uploading
video
pictures
rather
from
than-
your...
Oh, yeah, it's just a file.
So-
It's just a file.
And I'm saying, this isn't something that is going to wait to be approved. The recording minutes
Right,
are
it's,
going to be just uploaded as is
That's it.
Yep.
So
with
you-
all,
With all
Ad-libs and-
all my, sorted comments, F-bombs every once in a while.
never.
So it doesn't have to be typed out?
No, it doesn't.
No, it's not going to remove the requirement for meeting minutes to be posted and recorded. This is an addition to that. This was the Lineham mandate that all raw recordings be available for the
Since we
public.
allegedly don't approve meeting minutes that accurately reflect what was said, which is
I don't think
a
it's
total
true.
lie.
Well, it's not a
Our meeting
verbatim
minutes-
recording. That's all it
The
is.
implication was not only was it not verbatim, but it's not even right.
Well,
And it's
the
true.
truth, the fact is that this isn't required by law either.
Not at all.
It
And I'm
isn't.
eager to post it because I...
But it is it's something that the town voted, so it's something we'll comply with. So.
the other item is I had just plugged in a number of $2,000. I'm sure it will be more than that. The library needs a camera, or the union has requested a camera on the building on the parking lot side. So the attorney had asked if we could put an article on this special town meeting for that. And then,
Safety reasons?
Yes.
Security.
yes, just for security.
It could be a
Yep.
lot more, it could be more than that. depending
It
on how
is.
they're
It's
doing
going
it.
to be more than that.
Do they
She
have a
had said
security
just-
system there already that they're adding it to? Or is this going to be feeding pumping it onto the town's system to
I'm not sure.
The
but-
recording has to go someplace.
Right.
Right? And
Right.
either it's on a system that's maintained by whoever owns that system, so like if you have simply say for Ring or something like that.
Right.
It goes to their servers. But if you just put your own up, like a hunting thing,
Sure.
you have to have a machine in your house that holds all that
Some of
stuff.
the police department doesn't have it. I know Cohasset has all the schools and the libraries on there.
So this might be
Oh,
linking
right.
to some
That's-
existing
yeah.
security, but we can get the backup to that too.
Right, well, no, that's just a number I plugged in. I
Oh,
asked
we're not-
Josh
we're
if
not
he
ready
could
for
get
that.
me a few quotes. No,
Okay.
Yeah.
we don't have that. And he said the same thing, you don't want to just, the attorney had said, even a Ring camera, just put something up there right now.
Even a sign that says there's a camera.
No.
It's only audio. It's only audio.
Okay, and the other, last item I just want to talk about quickly is $7,500 I want to use out of the unrestricted money. Hanson called and said, hey, a few years ago there was going to be an audit of the district done. And I don't know, they put an RFP out, nothing ever happened with it. So Hanson wants to move forward with it. She said it's $15,000, $7,500 for Whitman and $7,500 for Hanson. So it looks like we'll use unrestricted.
It's been a
money for that.
long-term place saver on our agenda, so I don't think we'll find much
There's already
resistance.
money put aside for that. There should be money put aside.
No, I think, and I did look into that.
Okay.
There was money, I think that Frank was sort of not spending out of a particular line, legal or whatever, but I checked with, it wasn't set up as a separate, it's not sitting in an article or anything. And that money was expended back then and closed out, so no. There isn't anything set aside that I could find on that.
Frank said he could find the money.
Is that what?
Well,
Yeah.
You remember the day, it was our last meeting before COVID. We were in the big room, the last before we shut down. And I'll go back and review those minutes. But for some reason, I thought that it was
We
more
didn't vote
secure.
on it. He said he could find it.
Yeah, I
So you
don't-
can find, is
It was
that what you
20.
remember? Okay, if it's more than
but I don't think it was ever a warrant
Do you
article.
have the quote that of the specs of this audit?
I don't have the quote. Lisa does have the quote, and she told me the gentleman's name, that she's hoping she can still get him.
Revenue.
But it's not on this warrant anyway for this.
No,
But I want to see what this auditor is going to do, because I've been a proponent of auditing the schools since the minute I started attending school committee meetings and looking at budgets. It's like, not an accusatory, it's like,
Oh, no,
whoa,
no.
how are they spending all that money?
Okay, very good. So,
Okay, so it's
Mary
ARPA.
Beth, could we get a copy of the unrestricted ARPA matrix? Or the matrix you just
Oh, this-
referred to? That would help us.
this is, when did I do this? On the 11th.
Yeah, no, by email, so I can forward it to the
Okay, sure.
committee.
We can have that too.
And then the guidance. You said
Yes.
there's a 3-pager, I think, for
No,
the
I'm
guidance.
hoping it's a one-pager, but,
The guidance for the ARPA utilization, that's what I'm referring to.
oh, I have just what I printed off their website,
Okay.
okay? And
Okay.
that will show, like I said, technology and.
Okay, so if
water,
anybody
sewer,
has questions, because I know
healthcare.
there were some questions about what the restrictions are, you can go to the website for ARPA.
I just went to Plymouth County ARPA,
Okay,
right?
so if anybody has questions on that,
Yep.
just go to the Plymouth County ARPA, you can get all the information about
Yep.
what the restrictions are. But it would be nice, and Mary Beth and I have had this conversation several times, and we brought it up last year, about the input from the Finance Committee on the utilization of ARPA, right? We brought it to the attention of the liaison to the Board of Selectmen. I mean, this isn't CARES Act. CARES Act had to be separate from budget. This is certainly within the purview of the Finance Committee. So what Mary Beth and I talked about is that if the request or the decision to utilize ARPA money happens at a time where it's going to be incorporated into a warrant, either a special town meeting or an annual town meeting warrant, it should be specified as a funding source on the warrant. Right? Because
Absolutely.
last year we had an ambulance just appeared, right? Nobody paid for it, apparently, right? Because there was no mention of what funding source was going to be used for that purchase. So going forward, if in fact a request or a determination to utilize ARPA funds happens in between a special town meeting or an annual town meeting, a form similar to the reserve fund transfer form where the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee mutually collaborate on the utilization of these funds. Something like that, so.
Yeah.
So with the Plymouth County, I had mentioned that the federal money came in as a cash deposit, that's that 800 balance that we have in the bank. The Plymouth County money, it depends on what the purchase is. Some of it you have to pay for upfront and seek reimbursement like we did for CARES. And other, depending on what it is, I think the larger items, they may give you money up front to make the purchase.
As far as the,
Depends on what it
as
is.
far as the ambulance bill, obviously that's a restricted fund.
So the ambulance qualifies under the restricted, so we wouldn't want to use the unrestricted bucket for that.
But you
And-
want to take that money, $550,000 for an ambulance?
Right,
Okay.
out of the restricted
That's under the health
money.
part?
Yes.
Okay.
And I asked Tom O'Brien, he said fire trucks, ambulance, anything like that. He said that's easy. Towns have bought several of them, so.
So not to go backward, but some of the utilization of ARPA funds never went before this committee, and they were used in collective bargaining to pay for bargaining items, that money, if the taxpayers were more aware of what went into the collective bargaining agreement, and I'm referring to that incentive.
$1,500 incentive.
You know, that's a lot of funds that could have been utilized for some of these other things that we're now desperately seeking funding for. So that's all I'm saying about collaboration and, getting the finance committee involved with the decision-making about how to use these funds.
So, let's start with that. The recorders just came in. I'm ready to hand those out this week or next week. The bill is in for $1,500. I don't want to hold that invoice that we now have for a month. I want to pay it out of the unrestricted. You want me to do some sort of not a reserve fund transfer form, but something just when I submit the invoice?
Yeah, how did the Board of Selectmen approve that? Or have they?
Actually,
Just a verbal?
I will sign the warrant for that. And I went over this on our last selectmen's meeting, what
Okay.
I had planned. I had already talked to them about the DocuSign earlier and
So this is the first time that this board is hearing about the $1,500, right? I mean,
Right.
we're all in agreement, I guess, that the bylaw is part of, what we have to go by, so I don't think anybody's going to, we could take a vote, see if anybody, I'll entertain a motion, to see if this board supports expending $1,500 for the
We
recorder.
already spent the money though, right?
No, we haven't.
You just bought the devices, right?
Well, we ordered them, yes,
You did?
because of the bylaw, yep.
Okay.
And so we want to get those out, because really, they should have been all doing this since July 1st, but the Attorney General came back to us on July 30th, and then Josh went out and got quotes for actually wiring all different meeting rooms, but the COA has a meeting room, and the library has one, and it doesn't make sense. We don't meet in just 2 rooms, we're all in different buildings. So I said, no, that doesn't make sense for 20,
That might have got
30,000.
you into that.
So all I'm saying is, we didn't meet after July 30th,
Right.
or before, you know what I mean? Or we didn't know about it at our last meeting. So I'm just looking for concurrence from the board that you want to be part of this decision-making.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'd say for that purchase, I guess we don't really need a vote of the board. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know if we have a choice. This is, what if we don't comply with the bylaw?
Right, we have to.
Right, but there are other ways to comply, right? I mean, we could do other things than buy these recorders and put them in each meeting room and have the recording
What
secretary
other ways
send
could we
it.
comply? That's, I'm sort of asking, could we use our phones? What is the other ways that we could comply? What do we ask? What is the ask that could save us money? I want to know the cheapest way to apply, still meet the guidelines of the bylaw.
I think that's it. That's
The
it.
$1,500 is the cheapest way.
Well, the cheapest, right, right.
I mean,
John.
we could revoke, get rid of the bylaw, I guess, but.
Maybe it's a thought.
But I
Quick
don't know if
question.
a lot of people like
Those-
it. I don't know.
Devices can leave the building. So that when we meet and the recording's made, this isn't a secure office space. So we need to somebody needs to take that with them home.
And they do, right? I think their recording secretary
Yeah.
takes it, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
That's why Elizabeth's husband's here. He had to bring it. Thank you again, by the way.
The other question I had, there was reference made to money, the ARPA funds spent on bargaining unit items. Are we gonna find those things in this coming budget?
No,
I don't think
They
anybody's
were
in.
a one-time
one-time
expense?
payout, that was
For the
the
COVID
former
bonus.
town administrator. That was, I think, his idea, or whatever, he put that forth. And the unions, I'm sure it started out with, like the police and the fire because of COVID and whatever. They ended up doing it for the DPW and the town hall, and then they did it for non-union as well. Not all non-union, but non-union as well.
But there's nothing that's going to show up like we've had some of the salaries
No,
No long term.
in recent memory suddenly zoom up because, negotiations after town meeting took place.
Well, that's why I'm saying is we're going to use it. In this warrant, we're using ARPA funds to fund 2 salary line, but it's going to be very much visible what the funding source is, right?
Right.
Just quickly, because things are recorded. The act, although I believe we had a better plan for long-term stability, the ability to pay employees long-term better, but the idea to give the COVID relief and utilize that money was recommended by the federal government. That was the president even said, you can use it for this. It was in a couple of his speeches. So it wasn't anything nefarious that our town did. I just feel as if there was another plan, because we had an opportunity that might have impacted long-term better for employees and benefited taxpayers that Mary Beth had come up with. That's all. But
Oh, I'm certainly not saying that it wasn't a good resource for
just so,
first
because it is
responders.
recorded, and
Yeah.
people should know that was something that came down from the federal government as a recommendation.
oh, the attorneys were involved, that was very legal.
Yeah. And it was broadly done throughout many towns.
I'm only using it for an example to say we didn't have any input in that process.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That's all.
And we could have, in other towns, they aren't doing large force mains, right? Where, we could have, it would have just worked, it would have moved the money around, but employees would have benefited long-term from, having their jobs stabilized during,
Kathleen,
I just want to state that those bonuses were really performance bonuses for showing up during COVID. Teachers didn't get those bonuses, and teachers showed up every day with hundreds of kids in front of them, because I was a teacher back then. And I didn't ask for a bonus, and I didn't work for Whitman or Hanson, I worked in Pembroke. But teachers showed up and they didn't get a bonus. So I'm pleased that our employees were reimbursed. I think the state reps were the first to say, hey, we can get a bonus from ARPA. But I want it pointed out that the teachers didn't. That's having read up on this, because they were the first ones to jump on it. Yes, and then it trickled down to the town. So I'm happy that our police and firefighters were compensated, absolutely. And I want it noted that teachers showed up and they didn't get paid.
okay, so I think we've covered ARPA. Anybody else, anything we want to bring up about ARPA under new business? Okay, so then, old business, I think we'll skip down, just so maybe if you want to leave, we'll just,
Actually, while she's here, I wanted to say something with old business, and just kind of, and I know we talked about it earlier, and I want to apologize for being late. We said something about the capital plan, and you said, oh, that goes to the matrix. It doesn't. It goes to the money that we're borrowing now. It is and it was brought up earlier. We think people are going to think about it as a car. When we borrow, we're not just, when we go into rolling debt, right, and have normal debt, we set in motion not just a school, not just a DPW, but what fills it in next. So what you're really buying is a new police station, fire station. That bump buys a lot of different things. It rolls it forward into a plan forward, and the amounts that you kind of set your budget at stays fairly stable. Long term, it's a better plan. It's not just the one-time car. It's the car afterwards and the car afterwards. It keeps its value essentially, whereas your car would devalue. That way, that's all.
My point was that
They're gonna
most
think of it
people
then.
do not think of finance in that way. They think
Yeah.
of finance as their homes, as their daily
Exactly.
life. And we don't do that. Or very few people do that. People look at what I have to spend, and that's what I have to spend, and I can't spend any more, or else I have to take a loan out or a remortgage, and then, oh dear, So this is a very different way for people to think about how financing at a government level, at a town level goes. It would probably be a very interesting opportunity for us to try and separate that. Here's what it is and why it works that way. I think that informing people how things work at this level is the difficult part, because they just can't connect them.
I think you're right. In a sense, I would say, if I were to say it, this one-time bump means you're buying, and I know it's tough to swallow, means you're getting all of these buildings.
Well,
And not doing it
but
means...
it's really not a one-time bump. It's a one-time bump that stays there.
It stays there, but
That $1,500 doesn't stop at 30 years, because as soon as you're done paying for X, then you go to the next thing.
Right.
But
Right.
5 years later, right?
But you've built in
you're
that.
still going to end up there anyway.
Yes. But yeah, it's just informing people. That's all.
Mary Beth, you had
That's a great point, Mike.
Just quickly, one thing that I know a lot of towns do, and they're able to do it, and we have a lot going on right now, but as a debt expires, they still appropriate that debt payment, and they sort of, keep the funding levels. So as the debt falls off, people are used to paying it all, so they're still putting that aside, and that helps with their future projects that they take on.
That's
But-
the role we're
Right.
talking about, yeah.
Right.
So if we had done that, say 5 years ago,
We
we would
would
have
be
been.
20
in a
years
great-
ago.
Great
Right.
place now.
Right.
This is kind of
When
what
the middle school came off and different
it would
things
have
came
come, it
off.
would have happened, and that's exactly the nobody's talking about the failure that brought us here.
Well, that's not really a
gonna
good
get us
conversation to
Yeah,
have.
it's not a good conversation, but it's an honest one, and it's the one
Well,
reason we needed the Collins Capital, and it's one they highlighted.
Yeah. It's a conversation that you need as a precursor to understanding where we are now. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I agree.
Nobody cares.
I know, nobody cares.
Well, I mean,
It's true.
I
I'll
should
be
have
happy
gone
to conduct that interview at a later date.
It's saying I should have gone to a different college because it would have been less money, or I
It's
should
true.
have done this.
No retrospectoscopes.
The retrospect doesn't work.
Yeah.
Many of them, again, weren't here when those decisions were made, so it doesn't, it's not,
I know, it gets tough when you're trying to make that long-term, sound financial choice, right? And people are just seeing that momentary impact. That it's kind of like the needle. They're thinking about the pain of the needle and not the pain of the disease. Essentially, the long term of not fixing it. So.
Well, at some point you got to jump on, right? I mean, this thing keeps spinning around, and we keep letting it go by, right?
It gets more and more
And
expensive.
the jump gets higher. You know what I mean? So, at some point we really got to jump on, and for me, the time is now for both projects, in my mind. But
Yeah.
like I said, everybody has their
Dealing
own
with it
reasons
as well.
why they would vote the way they vote. But to me, it's both or not. It's both.
All these projects should be viewed as one amount, all three. And what we can afford should be, and then the ask should be dispersed equally throughout all projects. It's all capital. As all of our citizens are, all of its dire need, all of it. So the ask should be broad so that we can get the most we can get at the best, and the least impact to the taxpayer. It's going to be an impact, but
Okay. Did you get what you wanted to get in from Mary Beth before?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So just
Thank you so
while we got Alice Carlton here on Alice Carlton met initially. Was there any?
So while I did form that committee and ran the members all by the board, we didn't actually take a formal vote, and they have to be appointed. So we had an informal meeting, and we just went over, the timeline. We're thinking that, and Kathy is actually going to be on the committee. I am not. I think I'm on about 8 or 9 other committees. So people are being sworn in now. Kathy, when's the next meeting set?
Tomorrow night?
Oh, tomorrow night, okay.
6
So the hope is to analyze as objectively as possible all the different options that are available for that land, keeping it, doing something like a select soccer, selling it to a builder to build. Just look at every single option and see what the best options would be, and the money involved, and then bringing something to the annual town meeting in May. So that's the goal. The members on it,
John Galvin,
Eric Jubert,
yep, June O'Leary,
Ken
Ken
Lytell.
Lytell, and myself.
That's a good group.
Yeah.
That's a good group.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so I think, anything else for Mary Beth or Kathleen while they're here?
Thank you.
Thank you
Guys
for
are great.
attending.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now I go down and call Frank about the DPW project.
There you go.
All right. Okay.
All right, have a good night. Thanks again.
Okay.
Okay, so in our agenda, under old business, the meeting recording status and the posting of approved minutes, I'd still think it better than this recording going to WHCA. For me, a recording of the meeting in its raw form isn't really gonna help the average citizen know what goes on at finance committee meetings, but
I think it was, I'm under the impression, people are under the impression that it was being videotaped.
well, I think better for them would be an access to the approved meeting minutes. And that's where,
Yeah.
so easy for them to be posted on the town website, nobody still wants to do it. But if we can teach our recording secretary or give her access, you'd be willing to do it, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so I think
And I
that,
also think that the argument was that they were misinformed and told that the approved meeting minutes did not actually reflect the recording, which is why we need a recording.
right.
So you can walk out of here with the recording, you delete some of the information, right?
No, I guess you're missing the point too about what meeting minutes are all about. They're not a transposition of
summary.
every word. It's a
Right.
summary of the important aspects of the meeting.
Oh, I get that, yeah.
So
Why the
that,
minutes, not
to
the
me,
hours.
And the actions that were taken, those are the most, what did that committee do?
Yeah.
What did they do? They can talk a blue streak for days. What did they vote on? And what's the result of their actions?
Right.
That's how I go back and figure out what the heck the school's been doing since 2000,
The minutes.
2001, 2002. How did we get into this mess?
so we obviously are going to comply with the bylaw, right? Right. But I think we're doing the community a better service if we print or post our approved meeting minutes online.
Also,
People are going to get a lot more out of
There's
that.
a place right, sorry, Roxanne, there's a place right on,
Right.
it has agenda right next to it
Right.
in minutes, and there's nothing there. So
Nothing.
I need
clearly
to
it's
be
ready.
granted access to upload to that.
Right. That's all. Yeah.
That is all.
So we're working on it.
so basically, long term, I think people will see that the minutes are the most direct information. They'll probably go to the minutes before spending and. I mean, how long do we spend at these meetings?
2 hours, and we get it in the meeting minutes. You could read it in about 45 minutes and get what we really did.
Said. So I
right?
think what's going to end up happening is people will see
Yeah,
that the meeting minutes were accurate. You know, that's all.
yeah. And if someone says, on September 19th, something disparaging was said about somebody, so if you want to go and listen to the entire recording, to fill out a hurt feeling report, by all means. So,
I'm going to make hurt feeling reports, and I'll be filing one once a
you
week.
have-
I'll have plenty.
all right, so we're all done with
For
that.
tonight.
Subcommittee reports, Capital Committee.
The Capital Committee will meet on October 5th. We were supposed to meet last week, but it was canceled. We have asked all budget managers to submit their capital requests by October 1st. So, and including the schools, and the schools have been asked to send a liaison, non-voting liaison, which is part of the article that created the article, to these meetings so that they can explain and defend the way the schools appropriate capital, or request capital. So that's October 5th.
Okay, excellent. And this Agreement Amendment Committee, anything from the district on that?
September 25th is our first meeting after Chris Howard has resigned as a member of the school committee. The only challenge right now is that no one from the Hanson Board of Selectmen is willing to serve on the committee, and there are only 4 voting members. The 2 school committee members, 1 from each town, and the 2 boards of select members, 1 from each town.
They're the only voting members.
Those, yes, I'm a non-voting member. I can talk, but I can't vote. But Hanson has not yet found a select board member willing to come to the meeting, but we'll still meet on September 25th.
Oh, good.
I did hear that Hickey,
At least you won't have a tie.
I did hear that
Yeah,
Hickey
right.
did finally recognize that statutory is the legal method.
Yes.
Oh,
He
wow.
actually said I was wrong.
Geez, there you go.
When he headed up the deregionalization committee for Hanson and looked into the law, he said, and then I found that it was the law, and I was wrong.
Oh, well, that's good that he admitted it.
It's hard when someone doesn't listen to you for like 2 years and then comes back.
All right, so the middle school obviously is, we haven't had a meeting since July, so obviously a lot to report. We're getting a lot in media, social media, I would assume.
Yes, there was a meeting this afternoon, which I chaired because Fred was traveling, although he did call in. There's no going back on the project right now in terms of the law, the regulations of the MSBA. We're at a point of no return. So the vote will be taken at town meeting and then on November 4th. If it's voted down, we will go all the way back to, we need a new school. So statement of interest, all the way back, and in the waiting line. So it's not, yay, Whitman, we really want you to come back. It's, oh, Whitman, I hope you
Yeah.
get your act together this time. So we're talking a 3 to 5 year delay if the vote is no, with increased costs. And I'm not going to editorialize here. So no vote, the project is dead, and we'll have to go back to square one. And the feasibility study will not be paid for, reimbursed by, they'll only reimburse you once. So we'll be doing a new feasibility study on our own. What's going to be paid back of the $850,000 that was appropriated, we're going to get 57.74% of that reimbursed by the MSBA. So we're talking serious money. So if that's a no vote, that's the end of the discussion. The yes vote leads us, and there it leads us into building the new building. Yes, it's 135 million. Yes, costs went up, but that's our maximum exposure. There is a meeting this Thursday at the MSBA, and I was invited to it as vice chair. Mary Beth was invited as town administrator. We both plan to attend it on a Teams meeting. It's when the MSBA finance committee, this is not the board, this is the actual workers, meet with our architect and OPM to discuss how much is it going to cost, all of the financing of it. And so this Thursday there will be more information in terms of, are they going to approve it? Do they have more questions for us? But in terms of the building project itself, it's going to be lots of public relations stuff between now and October 30th, then town meeting, and then the town vote. But we cannot go back. We can't choose option 4B instead of 9B. That ship has sailed.
Yeah, so I was a little confused about the last Board of Selectmen meeting where the chair wanted to see reconsideration from the,
It's so
it's
costly.
not an option.
Not an option, and Carl's not available for this meeting Thursday, which is unfortunate because he's been invited to it, and he would be able to ask the MSBA questions that may have him rethink his position on this building.
Okay, excellent. Anybody have any questions for Kathleen? Again, obviously, you know, this is an important vote. I would suggest if anybody wants to get more information, Kathleen, you're certainly available to answer questions that the board members might
Kathy,
have.
I just make sure the public is well informed of it, you know?
Well, there's the
Because what's
Whitman
floating out there right now is it's huge out
website, and
there.
there's a Facebook page. They're pathetic. They need to be improved, and that was discussed at tonight's
Yeah.
committee meeting. And the videos, the informational videos that were being shot, well, the person who shot the film decided to resign from the committee and take the film with them, even though they were ready to be posted. So those are postponed 3 weeks. The schedule of releasing the videos was in place, and on August 28th, someone quit the committee and he took the film with us. So Brandon Frost, the middle school principal, and Rich Pulkinen, who was the person who's doing the voiceovers, they had to reshoot the film, do the voiceovers, edit it, so we're 3 weeks behind in terms of informing the public. So that just is Bush League, as my father would
That's
say.
pretty bad, yeah.
Bush League. But there's an effort to inform the public as best we can. They're just not doing a good job of publicizing it. Mary Beth was asked, because the chairman of the former chairman of the Board of Selectmen had offered as a member of the Whitman Middle School Building Committee to put the information out on the front marquee, or to bring it up before the BOS back in January. Well, that never happened. So Mary Beth was asked tonight to please put the information up as people are driving through saying, oh, there's a tour of the middle school on Saturday from 10 to 2. I think I'll go see it. Or there's a meeting. I think I'll go visit it. So the publicity has not been handled well.
Very good. All right. Any other questions? Kathleen? All right, and I think for the Public Works Department Building Committee, I think the information that I sent really gets you up to date about where this committee is and what they've been doing and the challenge that we have before us. So I would invite you to read this if you haven't, and that will help you better understand. And obviously, if you have other questions about the DPW and the request for additional funding, I'll be more than happy to answer them. So we have that next meeting on the 10th, which will be an opportunity for final questions, and then we will have to make our recommendation. Okay, so that exhausts the old business items. Communications, I think we only have one communication here from, well, actually we have two communications. One is a memorandum from Mary Beth Carter. Please be advised, the Board of Selectmen at their meeting of Tuesday, September 12th, voted to open the warrant for October 30th and to close the warrant at the end of business on September 26th. So again, Mary Beth did mention that in her report. And then also that the communication came regarding the Attorney General approving the bylaw. And it basically is the community preservation article, and then the other article was on the audio recording of its public meetings.
What does it say actually?
It says the town voted in the majority to amend the town's bylaws to add the following provision. All town boards and committees shall make an audio or audio-video recording of its public meetings, excluding that portion of those meetings conducted in executive session and those meetings that are recorded by WHCA for Whitman Hanson Cable Access. And said recording shall be transmitted to WHCA for broadcast and placement on YouTube.com for future access, or take any other action relative thereto. So it was waiting for a vote of the Attorney General, and now that is an
You
approved
said
document.
YouTube?
Yeah.
YouTube, that's where
So
they
you're gonna
go.
have no video, and who the hell is gonna watch
Oh, people do.
a video?
People watch videos, yeah.
Well, it doesn't have a video, just a recording.
It's a recording and you listen to what people say.
Yeah, people used to watch the radio.
Huh?
Whitman cable channels up there.
Yeah. You put your picture up there? You're the recording secretary?
No, but I will say that that file is an MP3 file, and YouTube does not accept MP3 files without a video that goes with it. So, will WHCA be editing the file prior to uploading it, and
Could
can I
crop it, you know.
upload it directly myself?
You mean you bought the wrong kind of devices?
I don't know.
Convert it over. which
That would be something I
black
believe
screen.
somebody should ask.
Can you do like
Yeah,
a
teachers.
pond, something tranquil?
So,
Fishing, you guys could get some fishing stuff.
So, and said recording shall be transmitted to WHCA for broadcast and placement on YouTube.com.
So it's their job to do
But
it.
if
So it's
there
their
is
job.
if there is no video, well, and it is their job, but what are they gonna do with the recording from there to here? That's what I want to know. Is it going to be an unedited version?
They're telling us to go to YouTube with it too, right? Telling us to go by YouTube.
Well, this says it could be a video or an audio video or just an audio, right?
But I'm telling you right now, YouTube
Won't take an audio
uses
recording.
video.
Right.
And they must have some way to do it, but I'm wondering how it is. And not that I'm skeptical by any means.
I think Mary Beth will give us
Well,
the instructions to see how that works.
When we get the one pager, that's a good question to ask,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
It's easy enough to make the change. It doesn't work on YouTube
Yeah.
because you have a black screen and then just voice.
You take a picture of all of us,
Or
then
Rick's, yeah, we got
put the recording in there.
With my face.
It could be like this. It could be like the Supreme
But it-
Court. They got the pictures of the justices
Yeah.
there, and they got the arguments in the background.
Well, sometimes they put the video of the voice.
Like the voice.
Yeah.
something
And
like
you know what, that's, I'm incorrect in saying that. It won't take the closed captioning, is what it is. It won't do the closed captioning. It won't say.
They won't do
what is-
closed captions, then I
Oh, is
can't
it-
understand what anyone's saying.
Well, that's what I'm
If these are officers.
All right, so we'll ask those questions. Let's,
Not our problem.
let's finalize just the meeting minutes from July 11th. Everybody have copies of that?
Oh, it's in your office.
I don't think I was here, was I? I don't think I. July 11th?
They left you a packet.
Back to the company.
Okay, people, we're nearing the end.
I'd like my name changed at the bottom of page 630 from Kathy to Kathleen, please.
At the bottom,
I was
okay?
absent.
That's an easy one.
I was an
I
absent.
answered both names, but I do.
Where was I feeling so relaxed that I called you
Well,
Kathy?
I'm very fond of you too, Elizabeth, but in formal documents, I like it to be Kathleen.
Yeah,
Love that.
what are
Where
you
is
doing?
it?
Bottom of page 630.
You were absent.
I
from that meeting.
motioned, Mike Warner was the second.
Okay, yep, I see it.
All right, so we're on page, for everyone else, we're on page 630, July 11th meeting minutes. So I really wanted to kind of just fix a sentence in here, and it was related to the line item transfer, the $45,000 transfer request, right? And then we found out that before we had finally approved it, it was already moved, right? So I think the wording here is a little too kind, personally.
I didn't know how kind you wanted it.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
here's the way I see it. So, it says, during their discussion, Mr. Anderson noted the $45,000 transfer request was already entered in the budget line. I think it said a line item,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So that's an easy one. And then then it says, this was, and I throw the subsequently word in there, brought up to the assistant town administrator. That's already there. And then cross out the whole rest of that line and then replace it with this. Are you ready? Who explained that it was inadvertently entered by the assistant accountant with only the Board of Selectmen approval.
Say that one more time.
Who explained that it was inadvertently entered by the assistant accountant with only the BOS approval.
Okay.
That's all. Anybody got a? I think it's just a little cleaner. That's all. All right. Anything else on page 630?
Hey, Rick, I know I wasn't here at all, but obviously the Army right here is being updated since the plans to house the DPW at this location during this construction of the new building. So we're putting money into a building, we don't know what we're going to be doing with it down the road. We're bringing it up to code. Why don't we put
Right
the
now, that
DPW back there?
Can we get red for that building for the different places that are using it? Because I think Plymouth County's utilizing.
Well, we're not thinking of new ideas. We're just doing meeting minutes right now.
Okay.
Right? So
Okay.
that was the discussion. I don't want to add to it, and I certainly don't want to take it away.
Fair enough.
But
No,
Oh.
I was just pondering what Al brought up. in my head.
well, we brought it up at the meeting. That's why it's in the meeting minutes.
Yeah,
Good job.
sorry. I apologize.
Okay, so page 631, I didn't have any changes on either of the last two pages, but if anybody has anything that they want to change, now's the time. All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes from July 11th, 2023 as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed, abstained?
Abstain.
2 abstains
Absolutely.
from absence. Okay?
So Alan, Rosemary, and Jane.
Ella and Rosemary, yep.
And
I
Lucas,
wasn't here for the July 11th one.
All three of us weren't here.
so it's three,
Oh.
4 of us?
Joe, you were here, right? You were here, right?
Gonna be at the committee.
Yes.
Yes, John?
Tell, I think they're gonna.
Yeah.
Two things. When you chat with Mary Beth, which you do outside the meeting,
Usually prior to this meeting, so I can,
could you get an update of what went on at the Monday, July 24th, school committee meeting that she was going to attend to discuss the budget?
Oh, yeah, I can give you a report on that. I was there too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true.
So the budget preliminary meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m., but the Hanson town administrator didn't get to hit till 10:40, so it was delayed. So basically, they just brought up some concerns about really what we ended with last year, the timing, right? We don't want to be doing this at the 11th hour, right? I think everybody's in agreement that that's not what we want to do. So we really wanted to stress that the 5% increase in assessment, is the town's kind of guideline, and that a 5% increase in assessment equals a 2% district budget increase. Is that about right? That parallels?
Yes.
I think that was from the superintendent himself. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're 60, Hanson's 40.
So, we talked a little bit of makeup of the school committee, who were the members. There was an article in the Express about the presentation for Chapter 70. There was talk about pending legislation regarding special education, and it could swing in another $650,000 into the budget. That was the superintendent's estimate. This is back in July, so.
So when they have special legislation like that, I think, just be careful, everyone. It's meant to meet a need, right? That means there's going to be, so they fund it so that you can meet a need. That means there are going to be more expectations. Like, we got more in Chapter 70, but then we have more regulations on ESL that we have to meet. So it's not a windfall. So that's what I get nervous when he has those conversations. We're going to have this, and are we meeting the needs with taxpayer? If we're currently meeting those needs with taxpayer funding, like prior to legislation that forces us to, then that's great. But we most likely aren't, given how we fund schools. So I'd be careful to see that as a windfall.
No, not with unfunded mandates that exist right now, and
Exactly.
more coming.
Right.
Exactly.
Every day.
And actually, I don't know if any of you saw it, but Channel 4's news tonight had a huge chunk on schools, how, needing this and how funding, and they're talking about transitioning funding from more affluent towns to
Towns, yeah.
those that don't, to try and equalize the payments per student.
That was what
Chapter
Why do you think they're
That's
doing
what,
that?
that's what Chapter 70, but the problem with it is something that we played with our numbers with. And I think that what they're talking about is the hold harmless. And I think I warned everybody about a year before it happened, we can't rely on hold harmless anymore, because they changed those formulas to shift the hold harmless, because wealthier towns were getting more aid because of it. And things like redlining and other things, it made it so that
It's just interesting that that was there tonight, and we're
we're talking
literally.
about Channel 4? Is that
Yeah.
just, thank you, I'm going to check that out.
John,
So is there a commitment by the schools to actually have their budgets in front of us? Other than throwing up their hands and saying, we don't want to go to the 11th hour.
right, well,
Which is what they basically say every year.
you gotta
We
realize
get to
that
the 11th hour.
the school committee wasn't at this preliminary budget meeting, right?
So-
It's just,
No, but I mean,
No
right.
commitment.
Is there a commitment? Maybe. There is a process, you know what I mean? I mean, you have to, the school committee does their job. I
You
mean,
said the Chapter 70 one, is that the one that was done, Chapter 70 in Hanson with the IRS, and then Madden went over to Hanson and did a presentation, and I think everybody on Whitman Finance should watch that, because
Not
he's...
Matt and Abrams.
I'm sorry,
His name was Abramson.
oh, was it Abramson?
Abrams.
I thought he got the same person who did ours, did. Oh, sorry,
I watched
So anyways, let me just finish this for
Yeah.
John, and then, if we
Okay.
want to bring up some new business or continue the discussion about Chapter 70, we can do that. So there was just a brief discussion on transportation costs, about how the town is responsible for coordinating students for transportation. So Bristol Agricultural, Norfolk Agricultural, this is something maybe that the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee
We
could
will be
certainly...
talking about transportation because the language they have in there now still hits us upside both sides of our head. We pay 60% of the mandated transportation, and then we pay every penny for the kids who live within a mile and a half.
So we're subsidizing them
So
still.
we're subsidizing Hanson's transportation.
Again, so no correction has been made.
No, I was frozen out of that effectively by Chair Howard, but he's no longer there.
So there's likely going to be a joint meeting in January. Preliminary school committee budget was requested in February. Whether that will happen, that was a topic of this meeting. But the final budget is due 45 days before town meeting, so.
So nothing's changed.
They had a meeting, they talked about changing, we'll see.
And wait for
That
the
was-
governor's budget. Before they can finalize their budget, they can give us all pie in the sky. We had that ridiculous, joint meeting with the selectmen and FinComs of both towns. You were there with me at the same table, John. It was a total waste of the superintendent's time because he didn't have real numbers.
Yeah.
I will avoid the use of fictitious in the future.
I knew what you meant.
And so, yes, he went through the exercise, but until they have their Chapter 70 numbers, which is not until the governor submits her budget, which will be earlier this year because she will not be a rookie, they don't really have what to add and what to subtract. I
The
think
bottom line is they should be able to say, this is what it's going to cost. Now, we can't tell you where the funding is coming from,
Yep.
but this is what we intend to spend, how many teachers, how many admin people, you name it.
Yep. They do that in December. I do go to any of their meetings that has anything to do with budget, which is virtually all of them, and they have preliminary discussions with projected class size, how many teachers they're going to need, etc., in December. So they might not give us a final version of their budget, but it's not, January, February that we know what. We have a better sense.
But I think 1 week before town meeting is what really is the problem, right? We're trying to make a decision 1 week before town meeting, and this board is tasked on making recommendations, so.
So back to when the meeting in Hanson with the account, where they were talking about how to set their budget, the 5%, are you sure it wasn't that? Not Madden, the same person who did our, I'm not
Oh,
sure.
you're talking about the accountant Eric something or other that was our...
Yeah. The person that came in and did our strategic plan, essentially did the
I'll let you
strategic.
talk, 'cause I...
Yeah, but basically, they hired the same person we had from Plymouth, the gentleman from Plymouth, and I'm blanking on his name, please excuse me, the person who came up with the 5% to begin with, and they went over the increases into the schools in Hanson, and they were saying they were too much, they were beyond 5%, and he said, no, that's normal, and he listed other towns that had about 10%, 7%. Now, I'm not focusing in on the 5% number or this number. I'm focusing in on the cumulative impact. I don't want to end up like Brockton. I don't want to end up in a position where we underfund and they spend it elsewhere, or they misallocate, and it overall costs us more, and the impact of that service isn't met. So I really think we've got to not get stuck on a number of, this 5% number. We could dream about it and like it and really hope, but force it outside of the reality of the spectrum.
That's not the way, it's not
Yeah.
the way it surely should work. Just
It
they
has
spend
been.
5%, we should spend 5%. Right? Use the old, if your friend was jumping off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge?
Exactly. What's the need?
Yeah,
And
it's
how we
what is
meeting
the
it.
need and
There's always a
understand
way
the
for the need.
environment where we are today.
Exactly, especially because we're about to, right now, we should be in the best stable financial sort of mode in the schools, because this isn't the tough times, guys. We've still got money coming in from the state. It's coming in 2 or 3 years.
federal government.
2 or 3 years. The tough times are coming. So if you have an instability now, it's going to be bad in 2 years, so.
Well, where is all the staff going that was being funded outside of the typical budget?
Trust me, the
Source.
chef knows I'm onto that. I said, what are you going to do with the people funded by ESSER 3? If you need them, you have to make a case for them. And if you don't need them, they have to go. And that was a conversation, not at a meeting. So he's going to have to justify. Some of them are warranted. If you enter the, I know we're running late, but
Yeah, we are.
there was a gap. There was a learning gap. The people who were hired with ESSER funds to help our kids bridge that gap did an amazing job. That's the good news. The bad news is they're funded by ESSER. So some of them going to continue to be needed. Jeff Simonek, is going to have to make a case for it, that we need this speech therapist, we need this interventionist, and we need to pay for it on the local.
How many teachers were there actually added
I
on?
think there were 13, but it transitioned. Some of them were paraprofessionals. He did different things with the ESSER 3 monies this year. He's looking at the use of paraprofessionals. There's way too many and too many different types of
Right.
professionals. So he's aware that his budget is going to be scrutinized more carefully this year. But I think our budget problems last spring were not just the school, is that the town was using free cash to fund the gap. Well, there shouldn't have been a gap. So if you're going to pay free cash use free cash to pay for the town local budget, then
that's all right.
the town did, I mean, the district did use E&D, their equivalent of free cash, to bridge their budget gap, which was totally irresponsible, but we didn't have any time. So
Right.
we can't be up against that big
Yep, agreed. All right, anybody else have anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Okay.
All right, thank you all for coming.
Thanks, man.
October 10th
Yeah,
is
that
our
back
next
ready.
meeting.
October 10th.
Thanks, mate.